What's up, Lowrowns? It's Cooper here. I'm here with Tim Morten, lead producer on Starcraft II, Legacy of the Void. So you guys got an awesome stage set up downstairs where we're actually here to talk about Legacy of the Void. The first things first, like, you guys start detailing the second expansion for Starcraft II, and it's not the biggest thing in the show. Was that a little odd?
It's such an exciting year at BlizzCon this year. It's just great to be a part of that, and hopefully people will be as excited about Starcraft as everything else we're announcing here at the show.
Yeah, this show is crazy. I don't know how you guys are going to top it in 2015, but we're pretty sure you're going to have something for us then as well. Can you kind of set the story for us where we are right now? We know Legacy of the Void is a Protoss focus, but Dustin in the opening ceremony made a big point to say you're still going to see some culmination to all these story threads that are out there in the Starcraft II universe right now. But where are we?
So where we left off at the end of the Zerg storyline, the Protoss are gearing up to try to retake their homeworld, Ire. And all throughout Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, these hybrids, the threat of the Xel'Naga has been looming. There is this antagonist named Amon, who is very shadowy. We don't know that much about him, but he has had a plan that has spanned millions of years to retake the universe and sort of reshape it his own desired way. So this is now tying up that arc, but also tying up the story of Jim Raynor and Kerrigan and all of our favorite characters from the past two games.
Is this kind of a straightforward linear take on where it left off, or is it kind of like show us a little bit of what the Protoss were doing in the earlier parts of StarCraft?
We're going to pick up the story pretty close after the end of Heart of the Swarm, so it does wind up being fairly sequential in terms of a timeline, though obviously we're jumping to a race that we haven't had as much focus on in the last game.
So one of the other big announcements during the opening ceremony was that Legacy of the Void is going to be a standalone product. You can just buy that and go. You don't have to have the originals. How is someone going to really jump in at that point, lore-wise and story-wise, if they haven't played StarCraft II and really grasp the, what's going on in this universe?
Yeah, there's a lot of story leading into this, so it's a good question. We're probably going to do a video that will catch people up. We've talked about other more interactive ways to do that, but I think there is so much to catch up on that it may make sense to have the equivalent of previously on StarCraft II.
5-minute intro. So there's of course another reason why it may be becoming a standalone product, and that's because you guys are launching 2 new modes alongside. We heard a little bit in the opening ceremony again about Archon mode, but there's always also the allied commanders.
Yeah.
So can we have a little bit of detail on that?
Absolutely. So this is the mode that we've started the most recently. So we still have a lot of experimenting to do to make sure we get to a point that we're happy with it. But basically, you will play as a commander from your favorite race, and it's up to you which commander you pick. You'll partner with another player. We'll have matchmaking for this, but of course you can also do arranged teams and play against AI, but with objectives and also with progression for your commanders. So,
as that team, are you kind of doing your own campaign style thing there? Like, because you're saying there's progression and whatnot, so you're striving to some sort of end goal.
Yes. On a mission-by-mission basis, the goals aren't just destroy the enemy base. There are various mission objectives that come up over the course of the mission that you have to cooperate on to achieve.
So the Archon mode is when I first heard it being talked about when Dustin was on stage, I was just in my head, I was like, this is a World of Warcraft April Fool's joke from way back when we were the new race was an ogre, and one person would control one head, one would control the other. How did this come about? Like, where did the Archon mode develop from?
We'd had the ability to do shared control in the past, kind of buried, not for StarCraft II, but anyhow, the impetus here is just to try to open up PvP play to be a full, accessible experience for players who aren't as comfortable going into competitive matches now. And by splitting up the responsibilities, there's a chance to do some learning from players who are already more advanced than you are, but there's also just a chance to increase the overall actions permitted,
Get it up to that pro level somehow.
Yeah, so experience what it's like to play like a pro, I guess.
Is this one of those things that you think will shock the development team of how it ends up being used? Because we were talking a little bit earlier, and you're like, well, the general idea is someone does macro, someone does micro, but there's actually a lot of different ways you can interact.
We are fascinated to see, and it may be early expansion, separate bases. It's just open-ended set of possibilities.
Or it's just like everyone just goes into the micro and ignores the macro again.
Could be. Who knows?
How are players going to interact? Is there like a new UI? Is there different communication abilities in that?
The UI implementation is that as the other player selects units, you'll see a dashed circle around those units so that you're at least aware that they're controlling it. The player who clicked most recently is the one who gets control, so we're doing a range team only to make sure that there is a briefing between players.
Limit the trolling as much as possible. So to be clear, the Allied Commanders is completely against the computer, and Archon mode is only PvP.
Right, and Archon mode where you share one base, and then Allied Commanders where you each have your own commander and your own base.
And again, the Archon mode, you get a new ranking for that group of players. So those two people get their own ranking. It doesn't have any impact on your standalone diamond status or whatever.
You got it. Yeah, it's really important to us that there's no penalty for more advanced players to help less advanced players. So you'll have an MMR matchmaking rank as a combined entity will impact your standing as an individual.
And one last thing on the standalone game mode, and also the amount of story there's to tie together. Is the campaign going to be like a different length because of all the stuff that needs to be done, and also telling the general Protoss story?
We're expecting this campaign will be longer than Heart of the Swarm. We haven't nailed down exactly the number of missions that are going to be there, but I think this is going to be a pretty big game.
And even though it's a standalone product, it is still sticking to the current expansion pricing.
That is exactly right.
That's right. So when can we expect like a standalone?
We're planning to start beta in the first half of 2015, and then the actual release date will depend on the feedback that we get.
All right, that sounds super soon. Yeah, but we'll totally hold you to it.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.